to function other
Well,
than this?
that's what, Bill, it's an amazing thing when you say, I found that I had to do it just simply to get myself educated into what we were fighting and how. And that's the thing that people have to get a grip on and go in and start fighting back on this with educating yourself.
So, what are we fighting? If you could just, for those that may not be as familiar with what you and I have been talking about, with what, 15 years now, I think, roughly
Right.
speaking, if you could kind of start that process, kind of just where we find ourselves here in Southwest Oregon as the attacks keep coming at us to try to make sure that we can't live here ultimately as part of sustainable development. And it's open,
That's
it's out in the open.
that's the statement that people have to focus on. Do you want to continue to live here? And do these people have the right to poison us out of here with the air quality? And I got up the other day. Yes, I think it was yesterday or the day before. It was so bad that I couldn't believe it. But as we look at it, do they have the right to do this under whatever guidelines that they're speaking to and whatever they're saying? But in my point is, what is the publicly exposed mechanism for doing so? See, they're telling us they're doing it. Their stakeholders have come up with this plan. And believe it or not, this plan has been in the works since 2012, from what I can see. Now, when you follow it and you break it down, it's so extensive to try to go into. So
We'll have to try to simplify it for talk radio purposes. But when
Exactly.
you say, if first off, if you don't mind, could you even give us an example of who the they are?
Well, it's what the stakeholders and who they are. It's best just right now. I'm going to go to the Rogue Forest Partners website. Okay. I sent this to you earlier, and I sent it specifically because it says the Salt Creek Project Area. Okay. The Salt Creek Project Area lies within the Big Butte watershed of Eagle Point and northeast Medford, Oregon. The project boundaries include federally managed and private lands identified for strategic application of ecological thinning, risk reduction treatments, and potentially underburning. Now, risk reduction treatments include prescribed fire. Okay? This is the whole key. Now, when they have opportunity, when you have to go into the other areas to understand the federal strategic plans, I'll talk about opportunity. Well, the most that I can find is that this fire was human caused. Everything that I see so far, I don't know if that's the official ending point, but everything that I see is they say it was human caused. Now, let's look at it and say how, when, where, and why was it human caused? Now, I read you the thing before we went on about how the fire was discovered. It went from 2 acres to 10 acres to 200 acres, very quickly. So however you want to look at it, my point is the website that I'm on right now calls it the Salt Creek Project Area. Okay, now I'm going to go in here and look at it and just touch on a couple of things. Increasing the scale of restoration. Beginning in 2012, the Bureau of Land Management conducted ecological restoration treatments with selective thinning and prescribed fire to 633 acres of BLM managed land. Okay, so that was back in 2012. Through their alliance with the Rogue Forest Partners and supported by the objectives outlined in the Rogue Forest Restoration Initiative, okay, now there's one for you, the RFRI, the Rogue Forest Restoration Initiative. The updated forest management plan for Salt Creek will treat an additional 450 acres of BLM lands and 250 acres of private lands between 2023 and 2025.
Oh, okay. So we're in that period right now in 2024. Okay, right in the middle of this. And by the way, what is the Rogue Basin Collaborative Restoration Project? I mean, who is that? Who is that? It's like, I mean, is it actually a gangrene group that just decides to?
Sure. And it uses our old friend, the consensus model, for everything. Now, I personally look at this as one area of life that I'm very strong. You and I have had many discussions about it, but I feel strongly that the voting public, the body politic that chose to live here, that chose to pay property taxes, that chose to raise families, that chose to be employed, that chose every aspect of it to keep civil society moving in a good direction, we get attacked by these consensus models, okay? And the reality is we are the largest stakeholder that there is, but they don't begin to address in a public format our opinion because it's a predetermined outcome.
The predetermined outcome is to let the land burn, right?
Yeah, because we have to put more fire on the landscape. The indigenous people used to burn for management. That is one of the biggest crocs I have ever heard. How does an indigenous culture that's reliant upon the local landscape to provide food, shelter, clothing, water, every aspect of it, burn the area that they're in?
Okay, since we have,
Be
all right,
nomadic. They
all
would
right.
have to move.
All right, so essentially what we are enduring here with the gangrene in cooperation with the Biden-Harris administration, we'll talk about that here in just a minute, because that Rogue Basin Collaborative Forest Restoration Project got $3 million in money to accomplish this.
That's right.
There's a couple of years ago that ended up happening. And so we have so this is a kind of a dances with wolves forest policy that we're dealing with in Southern Oregon, right?
I'm trying in a roundabout way because it has to be a roundabout way to answer the question, who's involved?
Yeah.
Well, the first one that I come up here, you say it says the Bureau of Land Management conducted, I read that one already, but that's the truth. So start off, let's go with the Bureau of Land Management. Now we go to the next one, restoring nearby oak habitat. Now we have the Klamath-Siskiyou Oak Network, the KSON, coordinated by our partners at Klamath Bird Observatory, KBO. Received a large grant from the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board's Focused Investment Partnership. So now guided by the Klamath-Siskiyou Oak Network Strategic Conservation Action Plan, the Little Butte Oak Initiative will reduce the two highest-ranked threats to oak prairie habitat, wildfire and encroaching conifer trees. Stabilizing these habitats will also help to create resilience to climate change, insects, and disease. So now you look at it, they're going to use wildfire, what they call wildfire, to battle wildfire. Okay, that's their premise. Fine. But as one of the stakeholders, the actual stakeholders, somebody who invested here, somebody who wants to have clean air to breathe, I don't necessarily agree with their predetermined outcome, because it's based upon false premises as I see it, and I logically put it together.
Now, let me ask you.
We look at
okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to, boy, and yet at this point we're looking at 3,400 acre fire right now. Greg Roberts doesn't think it's nearly as big as it is. But you talked about that it started off as because I want to go back to what you mentioned right in the beginning here, Mr. X. You said that opportunity, the whole idea of the gangrene and the collaborative plans is that they take advantage of the opportunity. So we had a human-generated fire on Salt Creek, let's say, right? In that Salt Creek region. We don't know if it was arson, it was just accidents, stuff happens, okay? And then under the federal let it burn policy, right, the 1995 Forest Management Plan, isn't that right? That's still in effect.
That's where it goes back to, Bill. Yes.
Yeah. Any kind of opportunity like that is then leveraged to let it burn, to let these lands burn for land management purposes. At the same time, though, Jackson County has an ordinance that says you do not do prescribed burns for land management in the summertime during fire season, right? That's what we have.
That's exactly right. And it's actually not an ordinance. I believe it's a
declaration or whatever.
Position stance. It's a declaration position stance. But that position stance takes them within the protection of federal CFRs, codified federal regulation, because they have the ultimate authority. And right now, I want to try to inform the people that are running this thing, you are breaking federal law. That's
pretty big claim.
Reality.
Pretty big claim,
because
Ed.
Jackson County government has that position.
So are you claiming then, or do you believe that that the way, let's say, Salt Creek fire was fought even from the beginning was enough to make sure that the land management purposes of burning the land which there was a burn plan on this. There's $3 million in funding to do burning on this land. And then magically upon magically, it starts. And I know they also asked for permission to do a prescribed burn within this land.
That was further up the river where they initially. That was the Southern Oregon Land Conservancy, but the reality is they asked for a burn permit after the beginning of fire season. Now it's pretty interesting, Bill, that they all consider themselves above common sense, lawful ways of doing this stuff. They came in after the beginning of fire season and asked for a burn permit to do a prescribed burn. Well, why are they above the law? No one else here is lawfully allowed to have a fire after the beginning of fire season. Why would they be allowed so? And why are these people allowing this to burn in that way, or why is it considered? Why do people have to get involved?
Well, I'd like to know why there wasn't just a big tanker drop on something when it was 5 to 200 acres, and all of a sudden we're magically at 3,000. I wonder about. I'm not a firefighter, so maybe I don't understand how this works, Ed. Maybe I don't.
Well, the fire accelerates quickly, Bill.
Okay.
But bureaucrats tend to do things that they don't understand. Now, we've got some new people around here. For 5 straight years, we had a relatively smoke-free summer, and we burnt very little land. But what I'm looking at is what I read to you. This is scheduled for completion. We'll treat an additional fort of private lands between 2023 and 2025.
Now, is this current Salt Creek fire, which I guess they estimate has a couple of weeks to go, they're able to estimate that. Does this complete that project? I'm just curious, Ed.
That's what I'm looking at. Now, I don't know if they're exactly within the mapping that I'm looking at for the plans of this, because you don't know. They don't know. Nobody knows. This stuff burns, and it burns. But I got to go back to one thing. You asked the question, who's involved, okay?
Right.
And I got to the last one was the Klamath-Siskiyou Oak Network and the Klamath Bird Observatory, and they received a large grant from Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. So they want to enhance the water by burning the forest, okay, the Salt Creek area. So now we go to the Rogue River Watershed Council with numerous private landowners along Salt Creek. Efforts included replacing 7 Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife priority fish passage barriers with fish passage friendly water diversion intakes, blah, 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 strategic locations. Now, so we have another group, the Rogue River Watershed Council. Now, Rogue Forest Partners has identified 6 projects along the Rogue Basin, across the Rogue Basin. These high priority areas, now I'm reading directly what they wrote, Bill. These high priority areas spanning public and private tracts are critically important for reducing the risk of extreme wildfires. Well, if we burn it first and we remove the fuel base, are we reducing the risk of extreme wildfires? Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I suppose until the grass grows back next year. But then we're also destroying our tourism and our health in the summertime.
There you go. Now, see, you take it to where I look at it. I look at it as we have the right to live here in peace and harmony without this. But I'm going to go back to what I was reading. RFP, Rogue Forest Partners, has identified 6 projects across the Rogue Basin. These high-priority areas spanning public lands and private tracts are critically important for reducing the risk of extreme wildfires, promoting climate adaptation, and restoring resilience to our landscape. Well, any fire without prior thinning, okay, is going to destroy the landscape for just generations. I've read too many of these reports. But let's go to the 6 projects. The top one listed here is the Upper Applegate watershed. Gee, do you think that one's burning?
Oh, what a coincidence! What a coincidence! Once again, though, Ed, we're not talking arson or anything, but what a coincidence that it happens to be burning right now. All right.
It's magically coincidental, Bill. Oh, it's just magically coincidental.
Uh-huh.
Now we go down to the West Bear Project, the Williams Project, the Stella Project, the Briggs Project, and then we get to the last listed here, the Salt Creek Project. And I look at this, and it just absolutely frost me, because did they make a public statement 2 months before this was, get ready, we're going to burn this project? But I bet you they communicated things amongst themselves. And I look at this, and it just absolutely astounds me. We are the largest stakeholder group that there is. And if our...
Well, we may be the largest stakeholder group, but we're the largest stakeholder group that's never invited into this consensus process where they come up with all of this federal funding. And see what I'm getting at? The federal funding.
And what I'm trying to get at is our power as that body politic, that we need to start making demands that they honor the law, the federal CFRs that led to the county being able to take the position that they did to protect us from this, which is that there shall be no prescription burning after the beginning of the state fire marshal declared fire season, no matter the source of ignition. Now,
that's right. They did say the county declaration was no matter the source of ignition, which would mean human caused, or whether it's a lawnmower striking a rock, whatever. Right? You can't use it then. You can then use it to slow walk firefighting. Is that kind of what we're suspecting might be going on in some cases?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Every aspect of this bill turns us to a point for our own livability, for our own ability to survive this. We have to start educating ourselves to fight these people. That's how I started fighting it years ago, is just educate. Know your enemy. Know what they're doing, because they are not friendly. They don't want you to live here. Their primary purpose of this in the law and everything that they're doing with all the fire mapping things that, they were having the town halls on, and it's to burn across boundaries. And that means public land, private land. They want you to evacuate so they can burn.
And they want you, as I know that Senator Widener Merkley, remember, they wanted smoke shelters installed. They want smoke shelters in the cities instead of going after the root cause of what we're suffering under or enduring, right?
Well, now I'm going to take you to the background. Here's a USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture press release, okay? Biden-Harris administration, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Forest Service, invest more than $31 million in 15 landscape restoration projects. And when you go into here and you go down to the bottom of it, Oregon, and $3 million went to the Rogue Basin Landscape Restoration Project across 4.6 million acres. The proposed work will accelerate urgently needed restoration treatments to meet the long-term, collaboratively developed strategic goals of wildfire risk reduction.
Oh, okay, so let me just ask a quick question here in our final minute, all right? Because I'm going to put links to all these things you're talking about, all right? I'll put it up on the blog today, so people can take a look at it and realize you're not blowing smoke, no pun intended, that it's out there in the open. When they talk about restoration, they mean burning land, right? They never say that, though, in the open, do they? Right? They mean burning.
That's exactly right. That's part of their thing, because we haven't put fire on the landscape. Us, as a group, the settlement of the people coming west, the literally the culmination of every part of history that we had no ability to control. History was here and on its way when I was born, and when you were born, when we were all born. The country was considered settled long ago. And now they want to rewild it. They want to do this. They want to do that. They want to move you for the aspect of sustainability.
Yeah, and we don't live in the rural lands, and we're all forced into a city, into your 15-minute climate-friendly, equitable community, that sort of thing. Well, they've been quite open about this, they being the Greens and the stakeholders within that tend to hold such great sway with the management. Now, let me ask you a quick question. Because for 5 years, we were doing pretty well in Southern Oregon, in Jackson County specifically here, given what the county government did. And the county government did a good thing, all right, when they came out there and said, hey, no, we're not going to be letting you just do prescribed burns. But then we end up having prescribed burns unofficially. That's what we're experiencing in some ways right now. Is the departure of Merv George higher up or to a different part of the Forest Service, is that contributing to maybe what we're dealing with right now? I don't know if you even know.
I believe so, because I've heard that there may have been some changes in personnel at the BLM too. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Because Merv was down with the county of trying to keep the smoke out of here for tourism, for health, for everything else, right? He was down with that program. It really was.
Actually, the way that I would state it, Bill, is slightly different. Merv George understood that the federal mandate by federal codified regulation was that the county had the ultimate authority. Now what you've got is a bunch of these groups, and when you look at this and you trace the history and you study it, like the other day I started sending you this stuff. You saw the volume of information. You have to read 100-page documents. They've had meetings. They had things. Oh, the Southern Oregon Forest Restoration Collaborative. Okay. Now you get down to look at it, and there might be 100 people just affecting and ruining the lives of, 250, 300,000. I think that one of the statistics I looked at, there's 300,000 people within the area of this. And you look at it, and this is ridiculous. I don't believe, I've seen people be taken, from our friend Bill Simpson, his wife was taken by wildfire smoke. I mean, and I look at this, every aspect. My wife was severely ill for 2 years from this. This is why I started fighting it. But I look at the whole thing. I am not going to let these people in a collaborative way, because I remember what the term collaborative means. A collaborator. A collaborator was the person who worked with the enemy to undermine the structure of your local safeguards of government. They allowed an intruder to come in and take over. So I look at that with that slant, because that's what 10 years before I was born was going on in the world. So I look at all of these things and I say, to protect ourselves, we have to consider history, because history repeats itself.
Now, let me ask, Ed, the mechanism really is through county government ultimately, isn't it?
Well, it's supposed to be. These people are circumventing the county government because the state of Oregon,
Well, the state of Oregon wants to burn.
Oregon supports this. OWEB, they're getting money from OWEB. Now, OWEB got their money from where? The lottery. And the lottery was supposed to support schools. But now they're investing heavily, and the members, and eventually your question gets answered. You said, who's involved in it? And I'm going to read this off. Our members, this is the Rogue Basin Partnership, and this is what's on their website. The Applegate Partnership. Now, magically, think about that one. The Applegate Partnership and Watershed Council. The City of Ashland. Now why is the City of Ashland affecting what we're doing over at Salt Creek?
Because they have a religious fervor to burn the land, too. As long as it doesn't burn them, I guess. I don't know.
The Beaver Coalition. I don't know who they are. That I haven't processed them. But now we have the Cow Creek Band Umpqua Tribe of Indians. Natural Resources Program works to protect and enhance tribal lands. They're involved. Illinois Valley Soil and Water Conservation District, Illinois Valley Watershed Council, Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District, and then we get to the wonderful Ashland group of the Lamakotsky Restoration Project. Now, you got to remember that they split off, when I read this, they split off a for-profit division, but as they define it here, they say the Lamakotsky Restoration Project is a nonprofit grassroots organization that develops and implements forest and watershed restoration projects in Oregon and Northern California. They work to restore ecosystems and the sustainability of communities, cultures, and economies. But now remember, they split off a for-profit division
in which they do prescribe burns.
Yeah,
they're professional arsonists. They do that for a living for the for-profit side.
The the original stance is you don't take money out of the forest. That's the thing that came out of California, well, and it's taught at the university. Oh, you can't take money out of the forest. That leads to
Oh, you sure can if you're a nonprofit when it comes to prescribed burning world. You know that.
When it comes to prescribed burning, of burning that resource. Now we go to the Lower Rogue Watershed Council. We have the Medford Water Commission operates and maintains the water system. So they've cultivated some partners in this, okay?
So in other words, there is a real thick bureaucracy of burn the land with a lot of different people involved in this, aren't there? From the sounds of it,
you have the native. Then you go to the Native Fish Society. Then you go to Rogue Riverkeeper. Then we go to the Rogue River Watershed Council, the Rogue Valley Council of Governments, and then we get to the other one that's just so important to have involved in this is SOCAN. Okay, Southern Oregon Climate Action.
Alan Journay's group. Yeah, okay, the Climate Action Now. So now, wait a minute. So these people are involved in wanting to burn the landscape too, which would seem to go against the purposes of Southern Oregon Climate Action Now, because Climate Action Now is there's not supposed to be any carbon put in the air, Ed, because it's the carbon dioxide that's killing us. So what's the purpose of burning this land?
Well, that's the thing. That's where I go, Bill. It defies common sense on any level, any type of realistic common sense interpretation. Now we get to the last one listed as a true partner is SOFRC, Southern Oregon Forest Restoration Collaborative, works directly with community partners and federal land managers who oversee 2/3 of Southwest Oregon lands to find common ground and help create sound science-based federal forest plans. Now, that's the best available science because they do it by all consensus-based things. So as long as the science says we have to burn it, they'll burn it because that's the only groups that are invited to participate.
Are people who wish to burn the land. Okay, how can we get invited to these groups?
Well, this is the thing. These groups are standing there in place of us, and they're taking a stance trying to put their input into it, and they're all taking probably money for this, too, through grants.
All right. Hey, Ed, hold on here just a little bit. I want to wrap things up in just a minute or two with you, but we'll be right back. I'm talking with Mr. X, and we're going down to the, I guess it's the burn the landscape industry, and it seems to reach into practically every corner of our lives and especially of the non-governmental organizations and a lot of our governmental services too. This is the Bill Meyer Show.
Hey, it's all fire.
That Pacific Power, when there's a wildfire risk and a problem on the line, was they under wildfire minute. So get your Generac and Patriot. Get signed up. All right, KMED.com. Well, it's pretty irritating, huh? The situation we find ourselves in. Mr. X, you were going through a laundry list of all of the various groups that, in essence, support burning the land in Southern Oregon. Okay, and we didn't even get through all of them here, and so because it seems like we're almost surrounded by people who are going through this modern day Dances with Wolves forest policy plan of burning. We can't. You can't harvest. You can't mechanically remove. You got to burn. Burn, baby, burn.
Right.
Forest inferno, that kind of thing.
In simple theory, Bill, what happened to them was that they argued back in the 90s for the Northwest Forest Plan, and they ceased logging. Once they ceased logging, they didn't address the idea that land regenerates at a given amount every year.
And the fuel load was going to just increase because they keep growing.
And the fuel load increased and increased and increased. One of the first fires that everybody got concerned with was the Biscuit Fire. That was the result of a prescribed burn. And it was like 500,000 acres. That's bigger than the state of Rhode Island.
Well, that would be a success according to all our collaborative partners down here in Southern Oregon.
It wasn't a success because when you read the lessons learned at the Wildfire Lessons Learned Center, the lessons learned were to sterilize the soil. So for literally thousands of years now, you're going to have a problem in that area. That's what these people don't understand. They call themselves fire practitioners. They're very proud of their position. But anyway, we get to the SOFRC. I think I said that one, the Southern Oregon Forest Restoration Collaborative. We go then to the Southern Oregon Land Conservancy. Then we go to the Freshwater Trust. Then we go to Trout Unlimited. Then we go to Water Watch. And then we go to the Water League. Then we go to the Center for Social Ecology and Public Policy. Then we go to the Save the Phoenix Wetlands. Now, that's the list on this page of their partners in all of this. So we sit there and we look at the shared information, the shared things. We look at how many people are actively involved across the board. And I've always looked at it and said the consensus model magnifies or intensifies the perception of a huge number of people, and I say that there is not.
So you probably have a couple hundred people, maybe 300 on the high end, that are destroying or that have a policy of supporting the destruction of life for more than 250,000 people, ultimately, even if they think they're doing the right thing, right?
And I personally believe that it's a criminal action when they violate the law. I had gone to, I just keep reading and reading and reading.
Okay, now we're going to have to just turn it over to people because you have to understand the depth of the conspiracy. This is just an open conspiracy. They're conspiring to do what they do, what they think is right, but I think they're wrong. You think they're wrong. A lot of other people think they're wrong too. And ultimately, how do you believe? I mean, the county is supposed to have the supremacy in all of this, not the consensus groups here and all of their collaborative partners and professional fire practitioners, et cetera, et cetera. So where do you think we go after we try to learn more? What is it going to take, you think, here? And then we got about a minute left, and we'll have to wrap, okay?
Well, it's going to take a change in perception, Bill. First off, let's stop calling it a wildfire. It was a case of arson. If it was human caused, was it intentional or not? And that's the thing. Was it an accidental? If it was not accidental, then it's a case of arson. And if it was accidental, what would you have done, Bill, if you would have sparked something that started an ignition? Well, the most simple thing is you stomp it out. You go into these areas, you carry a shovel, you do something. But then it's response. It's response with the intent of putting it out as quickly as possible. But when you look at it, I looked on one of the ODF reports, and this thing was scheduled. It's scheduled to go through July 24th. Now think about that just for a minute.
Uh-huh.
It's scheduled to go through July 24th.
So we got 2 weeks. Okay.
Scheduled to go.
Okay. Yeah, this is Salt Creek you must be speaking of, right? Salt Creek.
I'm speaking of Salt Creek. Yeah.
Well, that could be just the the mop up and everything else. It'll take that much time.
Well, exactly. But you got to look at if they have the ability to schedule that out. Are they trying to put it out, or it's 16% contained right now as of this morning? 16% containment, and then there's like Greg said, there's a difference in perception of how many acres are actually burning. I read one as of yesterday; it was 3,000. Today there was another one with the 3,000. It's at 3,800. Now, if I look at that compared to the initial startup, I don't know if it's accelerating that quickly.
Okay, well, that's good, I guess. But ultimately, though, you educate, and the people are going to have to pretty much rise up and most likely, maybe I guess the people are going to have to form their own legal action group, I guess. Because nothing seems to happen in this kind of system until lawyers get involved. Would that be fair? To say?
Well,
because Green is filled with law. I mean, they're willing to sue us out of existence to keep anything productive on the land from happening.
Well, I just look at it as, that land they're burning, if it's managed by the BLM, I own part of that land under the public trust. They're supposed to manage it for us. We own it. They manage it. We own it as a collective group, as the people of this country. All of the BLM Forest Service lands, that's managed under a trust. And the concept that it's federally owned land, well, read your Constitution. The federal government is prohibited from owning lands other than Washington, D.C. and military installations. Now, you look at that, they conduct that in the normal thing. They lease properties, they lease buildings, they do this. But now they act like...
Well, they're managers, but they act like owners. You know that.
That's right.
Okay, all right. All right, Ed, I'm out of
This is
time. Okay, yeah, out of time at this point. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put your
Okay.
information up. You got a lot of reading in there, and people can take a look and just because you have this to this to this to that, and you look at all of this, and it's like the whole system is lined up to tell Southern Oregon residents that well, we don't care what you want, we're burning you, and we're going to burn you and continue to burn you, and you can't do anything about it, and we have to prove them wrong. In this particular case, it's going to be our
exactly
action.
Right.
Okay.
That's the best summary I've heard, Bill. That's what it is. We have to stand our ground, and we have to start pushing back, because when you go out and you can't breathe, or you breathe this air is the equivalent when it gets like heavy like it was the other day. I've read all of the reports. That's the equivalent of smoking 5 packs of cigarettes a day.
Yeah, exactly. And the other aspect of this, and yet we're told at the same time that we're supposed to be open to our economy only being sustainable tourism. Tourism. Well, unless you're going to start selling, tickets to come observe fire smoke in the summer, and you can make money doing that. That's not a good business plan. Ed, got to go, but I appreciate your passion and your willingness to go through hundreds of pages of stuff here. And I think you should take the rest of the day off. Okay. All righty.
Okay. I'm going to go outside and breathe the smoky air for a while.
Yeah, breathe deeply, my friend. Thanks for the call. All right.
Yeah. All right, Bill. Thank you.
All right, Mr. X, and information.